All right, yo, everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Black Culture Podcast. We got a very, very good episode for you guys today. We have JFK, my high school. Hey, you know what? By the way, Alex, man, finally, I got you, bro. You always get these Cleveland Heights people on here. I finally got an eagle on the podcast today.
Heights does it better,
yes,
bro.
Sir. Yes, sir.
No, actually, I think this is the second eagle you got.
Oh yeah. You're right, because we had Anthony Parker. He was on there too. Okay, he might have went to school.
No, Cecil.
C3, yeah. Okay, I'm gaining on you.
Just stacking them up. He's stacking them up.
Man, also West Virginia State grad, man. He's big in the community. It's not just a guy that's out here talking about, he's actually doing it. So without further ado, Azel Bolden. What's going on, man? How you doing, brother?
What's going on? Pretty good. Appreciate you guys, bringing me on, giving me the opportunity.
Yes, sir. So, man, since our last talk, man, it seemed like we got a lot to unpack, brother.
It's like an oversized suitcase, huh?
Yeah, man. Yeah, but no, let's go back for people who don't know who you are. Kind of give us the backstory of who is Azel Bolden.
Hey, Azel, before you go, because he always forget, man, you want to toast it up for us real quick, man?
You couldn't wait. You couldn't wait for that. You couldn't wait for that.
Whatever we toasted to, it's on you, man.
I would say toasting to new beginnings, the birthing process, birthing new things, understanding the process is much more important than the product, looking at the birthing process itself. It takes 9 months to actually, go through that process. And it takes only 4 to 6 hours or 8 hours to actually birth the child. So to that birthing process, to new things, the whole germination and, all that growing into whatever it is that seed that we have in us, knowing, that we are was born with everything that we have or that we need inside of us. To grow into whatever it is that we're looking to be or that God has us to be. It just needs the right sunlight and water. So I toast to new beginnings, the birthing process and, opening up with new stuff and moving forward.
All right, go ahead, brother. I cut Alex off, man.
Yeah, but on another note, grew up, born and raised Cleveland, Ohio. I went to school, graduated from Charles Dickens on 131st. Before then, I did attend Tremont Montessori School for a little while. But after that, I attended John F. Kennedy High School, graduated there with the math award, top 15% of my class. Leaving there, I went to Shaw University for a year or two, majoring in mathematics, transferred to West Virginia State, ended up getting my bachelor's in economics, understanding economics and the flow of the money and currency and how it works over the exchange rate, meaning over countries and, over the market. But understanding that and coming home after obtaining my bachelor's in economics to work for Huntington Bank for a couple years, leaving Huntington Bank after acquiring some tools on my belt in the banking industry, moving from there to Quicken Loans, the #1 mortgage industry in America.
No. You moving fast, brother.
Okay.
You did a lot. So kind of take us back, right? Because we all know that the majority of us don't, one, get to make it out, and then two, get to make it into those types of positions. So as you going through school, as you growing up, talk about that time frame and what made you want to leave, go to college, get your degree, master some skills, and then obviously in the position you're in now, from that process that led up to this, where you want to give back and create a better environment.
I would say the thing that pushed me to leave and go further, I guess, would be outside of family, so having somebody that's pushing us to go further and to do more. I think the earn to have more access to information. The actual, I guess, the opening of seeing what's capable of hard work is what made me push to actually want to go further and dig deeper, because I saw people around me and, sometimes we take heed, and as a child, I was able to learn early, that I can see the fruit of the labor. And so when I looked around on the people that I'm living around daily, moving around daily, there's a certain type of person that comes with a certain type of fruit. And so when you can see the people that's driving, nice cars, and they're doing different things in life, having the houses and being able to give back, having the resources and able to help somebody else where they have enough to give out. We understand after seeing who does this and who doesn't, you see that it comes with, a workload, and it comes with that hard work being put in to where, our hard work has great results. And that's something that my mother always told me growing up, that if it's not worth having, if it's not worth fighting for, then it's not worth having. And so thinking about those things, and my dad instilling in me that if you start something, you're going to finish it. Like those type of thoughts and mindset processes is what helped me to drive, to continue to finish something to where it drove me, to want more out of life and to want more than what I had.
So I'm glad you brought them up, because of course, if you live in the Lee Road, the Kennedy area, the name Coach Bolden stands out. He's a legend. You know who that man is. You know what he stood for, what he meant to the community. Definitely for young guys like myself. To him, to you, that was dad, that was pops. But when you hear other people speak highly of your father, because on this episode, on this show, we always talk about having an example, a standard set at home. And you could, if you know Azel Bolden, you pretty much know who his father was because the standard was there. So when you hear other people talk highly of your dad, what does that, how do you feel like, and explain to some of the things that also that he installed in you. He showed you, he led the way in some of the standards that was set.
When people speaks about the work that he's done and things that he's done, is actually exciting, and it's a boost of energy to hear about that, because I believe that our parents only go but so far, and we have to pick up the torch and carry on. And so with that being said, when I hear about what he did, it gives me the energy and the boost to push a little bit further than what I hear about and what people tell me. But having that example in the household, and one thing that I want to understand or explain is you don't always understand, the example that you have. And that's one of the biggest things that I guess a lot of times we miss it because of what we want and being selfish. We don't get to see, exactly the return on the investment that they have, and the idea of being a collective mindset, meaning how he was pouring out, into the neighborhood, into the streets, and to everybody else. Sometimes as a child, you're like, when is my time? But the whole time, it's being an example and being a role model is what was the biggest thing that was important. And as I grew up, I understood more, why it was important, more so to show me and start moving and doing, so much more so than talking and mentoring. And so a lot of times, I think it's better to have, models versus mentors, because I don't want to get stuck talking to you and I don't end up doing what I'm supposed to do to show you. So, having that model was very important, because even though, I thought maybe sometimes it should have been this way or that way, he understood, what it would take to groom me into who I needed to be, in order for me to become who I did today.
So you're basically saying that your father, which a lot of us can't say that, your father was your first mentor, first model that you modeled after in life. Kind of talk about that, because I had no clue. He kind of came out of left field with that, like his dad is, but we rarely get to hear that side of it. Like most of us raised by single moms, but you had a father there, which is important for a young man to be able to model himself after. Kind of talk about how that was with you being able to grow up in an area where that wasn't very common.
I definitely believe that it's a drastic difference between having, a single parent household versus having two parents in the household. Just thinking about the perspectives of, how one think versus the other. And so when you think about just sports alone, women and moms, when the kid get hit, they're nervous, they're emotional, and they're tapped into that end of it because they care. They have the love and support And so with that, it's more like a tough love thing. It's more like he knows how to roughen and toughen you up in a way to where you'll be able to go out and you'll be able to take life on and it won't overtake you. And so what it does is it gives you the ability to have someone to see, the strength and the actual work ethic behind it versus, having the mom to where, a lot of kids don't end up playing sports because, mom is worried about them getting hurt. And so different things like that, it gives you, the balance sometimes to where it's not always good or it's not always, just peaches and cream, but you get to see the versatility in the two. And what it does is it kind of gave me the room to learn and actually see, what it takes to be in a relationship, what it takes to have, a family, and what it takes to actually go through, to actually obtain these goals in life that we want. But we see it and we see the product, but we don't understand the actual process. And so, like you said, with a lot of children now, I think the reason why, a lot of our younger children aren't structured as we would like to see them or as much as we would like to see is because of, the single parent household. And so what it does is, like I said, it's made a drastic difference in our communities and in a lot of places because we can see the difference in the values in our children and how our children reacts to the women and how our children operates in relationships, period. We can see a clear reflection of, how they've been portrayed to see the relationship.
So again, like back to Coach Bolden, he was up, man. He was, and just because Alex, you don't know who he was, but he was that guy that was real respected in the community. Like, you'll be doing something you ain't supposed to be doing. When Coach Bolden walked by, you're gonna get it together because that's how respected he was. He was a father figure to so many boys and girls. Like, a lot of people went to him to talk to him. I remember I had so many conversations with him. But Azel, what was one of the most important lessons that he taught you?
The most important lesson to this day, I would say, is that whatever you start, you're going to finish. And him being who he was and the stature, growing up going to East Tech, being in the Hall of Fame there, and being city council, going to North Carolina A&T's, coaching there, him having one of the largest softball leagues, from here to down south in North Carolina, him having an attitude to teach me that whatever I started, I was going to finish. It really changed me as a kid and as a child because as a child, we don't know exactly, the right or the best decisions to make next. And so when he had come to me and I was really playing football at this time and I decided to quit, is when he went back and forth with me about it. And he made me go to the track and I ran and ran and ran and he ran me as long as I would have been in practice, but I had to run sprints. But his whole goal was he was letting me know that in life, no matter how hard it gets, and no matter, how you feel about it, you have the ability and the strength within you to overcome, the task at hand. And so outside of just understanding football, and getting back on the field, playing again, and overcoming that obstacle and giving myself the strength to know that, I can do all things within myself through Christ, outside of that. But, understanding that, it gave me the ability to know that I can pick myself up in life, and not quit when things get hard. And so that's one of the biggest lessons that I think that he taught me, growing up was, if you start something, you're going to finish it. So if you go sign up for that team, if you go open that business or whatever you set out to do and you start it, you're going to finish it. So it's more like a completion thing. So complete the process. And so that's one thing I appreciate because as a child, I wouldn't have picked it up on my own. He made me do that, and I appreciate it now.
So, and this is new information to me because I didn't know how great your dad was. But you're saying as well respected and well accomplished as he was that pressure for you growing up? Because your dad was this dude that had these, that had a resume from here to down south.
Icon, bro.
And you being his son, was that pressure for you to perform?
Yeah, I believe it's definitely a certain amount of pressure, just being the child of somebody like that, with them holding themselves to a certain level, they push you to go to a certain level. But then within the community, when you start to take on different positions and different things, he was in city council, it's hard to not be scrutinized and almost crucified by the people. So, you have to be careful. You have to carry a certain type of persona, a certain type of, respect level for yourself, so that when you're out in the public and when you're out talking to people, or when you're going to school, or when you're in the store, you're a complete reflection of, what's going on in the household coming outside of the household, just like the fruit. I'm a piece of, the fruit that's coming out of the work that's being put in. So when you see children, they're fruit of the labor of their parents. So when you see them, they show a complete reflection of what's been put inside of them. So by me, having to be a reflection of, this prestigious person, it put me in a position to where, either I was going to be a spot, or I was going to carry, this torch, or carry this name, with the same sort of respect behind it.
So let's get into, what are y'all, the Eagles, the Falcons, the Crows? I mean,
we the Eagles,
bro. You know who he is. Don't do that.
I mean, honestly, I don't.
The
you
Crows.
Know, but
see,
yeah,
if you
man.
understood the dimensions, it'd be different. See,
Okay.
dimensions that the Eagles is the largest in the dimension. So
True.
So at that rate, we are the soaring Eagles.
Soaring Eagles, man. Many eagle has been shot down from the
Ooh,
sky.
no, you didn't, man.
I just want you to know.
No, you didn't.
They have.
No, man. But look, on a more serious note, because this is interesting. Your dad taught you all these lessons. He sort of set the standard, and Willie and I just talked about that. What did your mom teach you?
She taught me, well, first from the mom and dad perspective, the one thing that I think personally is, dad teaches us who to love and mom teaches us how. And so the way I look at that is, my mom, she taught me, how to actually be the going through of the process, how to endure for us to where, even though sometimes things may get hard, she stuck it out and stayed and made sure that, as a family, we were together. And even in, teaching us lessons, like I said, one thing she always taught me was, if it's not worth fighting for, then it's not worth having. She didn't just tell me that, she showed me that. And so by working constantly and, providing for us and making sure, we didn't have to go for wanting, because we weren't like, rich or just the wealthiest family, but she made sure that, it was food on the table. It was everything that we needed, outside of our wants. We had our necessities and our needs, and her being the church and the godly woman that she is, showing us the faith that, when you believe in something and you stand on it and there's a reward in it, and you can see this fruit. I think it's important because a lot of our children, they hear about, the fruit of these things and the fruit of the hard work and the fruit of, the women actually submitting and going through and actually submitting to the man. But a lot of them, they talk about it, but they don't actually show it. And it's a big difference when you show it. And I see you go through this process and then I see the benefits from it. It'll make me understand, pain better. It'll make me want to endure the process, because I understand, like being in any seat or being a celebrity or whatever, once you get there, you're already there. It's nothing that you can gain. It's the process along the way, that builds you and that makes you the person, that can handle the actual product.
So that's a whole nother conversation on women submitting, especially in 2021.
Yeah,
Man.
that's a whole nother, yes.
Yeah, bro.
That'll be a whole nother topic.
But the fact that you grew up being able to see that, witness that, be in the house with that culture, the angle that I wanted to come from is this. So growing up, your dad is who he is. What did that make you want to become, ultimately shaping the future and the goals that you have now, running for council and want to give back to your community?
I think it started just the acts of love and the acts of kindness. It started the engine turning, but me actually digging deep inside myself and then taking a look at our community and our society, our mortality rate in our society specifically, we see our in some of our areas it's 30%, which means we're losing 30 out of every 1,000 of our children. These types of things, and we see people dying constantly. We see, constant gun violence. We see, just constant trauma and noise that's deteriorating not only our people, but our community. And a lot of people don't understand that noise just not only can disturb your sleep, but it can also cause you to have, heart attacks. It can also cause you to have strokes. So when we look into how important it is to live in peace and have love.
Man, that's something that you said that too. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was just reading something not that long ago where it says that Black people literally need to get more sleep. Like, we are one of the few groups that don't get enough sleep from what you just said, but also from the things that we have to endure that fill our brains, our thoughts, that cause us, as we sleep, we don't get good sleep. We don't get peaceful sleep. So it's just crazy that you brought that up, man.
Yeah. So when it comes to the peace and stuff like that, as a community, there's so much noise that even the sirens, we've normalized it to where, we've normalized killings every day. We've normalized the police killings. We've normalized the different things like fast food, knowing that it's chemically based, knowing that a bipolar disorder is a chemically infused problem. We still feed our children chemicals and think that it won't happen. It doesn't make sense to look at our community and understand some of these ideas and aspects and not get upset, if you will. And so just, and not blaming anybody, but just being upset to where something has to happen. And it has to be a change to where, we're not set up as a people to where we can be made money off of our bad decisions, but we have to be putting our people in position to make profound and good decisions and financially set decisions to where we can see a people striving and happy and not have to steal and not be so upset to kill. Because one of the biggest things that I'll say about, our community is I believe that we fight more, in the flesh, but it's a spiritual thing that we're warring with. And a lot of people don't understand it. So we fight each other, not understanding that, like suicide, it's a thought. And people will try to kill the thought of suicide, and they'll kill themselves thinking that they're getting rid of a thought. But the whole thing is you have to get rid of the spirit of suicide. And so we war in the flesh a lot, so we can get mad at each other, but it's really work that's making you upset. It's really, the outside aspects of life that's built all of these trauma and all of these things that we war and deal with, and then we take it out on the next person, and we don't understand the love, so it ends up going into catastrophe. So those are, like, a lot of the reasons that, just from my father being who he was and the missionary, seeing, how things are and knowing what they should be, it's drove me in my personal aspect, looking at where I've come from in school and the knowledge I have to bring it to my community. It's hard to do that, if they're not acceptable or receptible to the information and able to utilize it.
So you're a kid from Cleveland, Ohio, and you go to West Virginia State University, right?
Yes.
So some of the things we see and saw in our community while in high school. How was it when you went to another state? Was it anything that was different, that was eye-opening, that motivated you and put something in you like, you know what, man, I need to take this back to my community so I could start improving our community? Like, what was some of the lessons you learned? Like, was it, because being at Kennedy, you got the library right there. You see so much stuff, man. How was it when you finally got to like another? Because most people leave and don't want to come back.
Yeah.
You came back. Like, how was it?
Well, I mean, coming back was a different story. That was just something that I had. And it's funny because I actually wrote, and I had a church that gave me a scholarship. And I wrote a letter about how I wanted to go out and come back and return to bring everything that I had to my community. And I was actually able to kind of fulfill that when I started doing the book bag giveaways and stuff. But leaving and going to, I think North Carolina was one of the best decisions I could make to go and to actually get, that southern feel of love and of, how people can actually come together and have a good time. Even though there's differences, down south, it was a much different feel, as far as to how people were a family and how we had come out on the yard and kick it and have a good time. And, like I said, it wasn't the perfect atmosphere, but it was a different type of atmosphere to where we don't necessarily always get to get everybody together without something happening or having an issue. And so there, it wasn't always that we had an issue when everybody was together. Everybody was on the yard. Everybody was corralling together. We could always sometimes get together and not have, a fight all the time and not have something go wrong. So I think that was one of the biggest things, being able to go and see, that down south southern atmosphere, to where even going out, it wasn't as much drama and it wasn't as much going on, to where you could actually get out, have a good time, kick it, and things would be cool. And so I think going from that to West Virginia, where there is an awesome state to live because it's a much simmered down place, and it's a very slower state, to where it's not a lot of younger people running and ripping and running and working and doing a lot of stuff. So there's a lot more settled place to where you can go, you can get stuff done, and it's a working state, but it's a place to where it's not a lot of noise, not a lot of trauma. So experiencing those two things, and seeing, like I say, even though it's still not the perfect, surroundings, nothing is perfect where it's not going to have, problems or things happening that shouldn't be. But understand, like I said, even with those, you can still enjoy yourself. You can still strive to be better. You can still come up with ways, outside of what's given, to figure out how we can have a good time. It starts to be like, well, we can bring these things back to our community and really start to build on it. And so coming back home was something that I always wanted to do. And after graduating, I felt, that it was my duty to come back and start to, do my work in my space. And I tell people a lot of times I could have went, to a lot of different places. But even when I came home, I could have worked for Quicken Loans and made money writing loans, doing mortgage. But I tell my kids all the time, I enjoy, working with the kids, seeing them, have an evaluation, having an evolution moment, to where they can understand themselves in a different light, and we can see a child birth something different.
So you mentioned peace, right? Which in our community is somewhat foreign. And I mean, honestly, it is,
it is, yeah.
Because we get hit from every angle.
Every angle.
And so give me your take on, is that something that's possible for Black people in America to achieve, especially in this city with all that's going on, with all of the issues that plague,
Well, one thing that I would say, I believe it is, but like I said earlier, I believe that it's more a spiritual thing than it is, a natural flesh thing. And the reason I say that is because understanding our spirit, that we all have a human being, and within our human being, we all have a spiritual being. And that's just, what it is. Our spiritual being is what provokes us and what makes us to move. And that's a reflection, or our flesh is a reflection of that. And so as you think about, when you get upset, you have a certain spirit that comes over you, and it makes you, to provoke you to do different things, and you operate in a different level. And so when we think about, not being religious, but being spiritual, understanding ourselves, as a people, we don't tap into our spiritual aspect, and we don't understand ourselves in a spiritual way. So like I was saying before, we can be upset with something, and that thing that makes us upset, if somebody doesn't love us correctly and love us in spite of, it can cause a friction between two people, and those two people not understanding what the real root of the issue is, or the real enemy is. They can get into it and end up hurting each other, and the real issue never gets solved. So when we look at, like, the stress of the police brutality, the stress of hospitalization, the stress of the daily life, like you said, the bills and everything that happened, the stress of, walking down the street and getting shot, like just particular stresses that we have daily. These create spirits, and our spirits then create emotions that cause us to move and think different things. And when we come across each other, the reason we don't, our communities are like it is because we don't really show love to each other, like unconditionally and understanding. We don't come to people being unconditional, meaning in any condition that I'm going to still treat you and love you, meaning I don't want to see you hurting. And I'm going to have understanding, meaning I'm going to listen to you and see why. Most people come at you and they want to point the finger, or they want to accuse you, or they want to do this and that. And it's not about that. It's about us understanding that it's not our position to judge, but our position just to be open and love you in a way to where we can see your best next person come out. And so when we start to deal with our spirits, once we get a clean and the right spirit in us, then it'll be reflected in our person, and we'll not want to see the next person hurt naturally and genuinely. And from there, we won't want to inflict pain at all costs. Whether we're upset, whether we're mad, whether we're, upset about life, we'll understand that the real enemy is the frustration. The real enemy is, that spirit that's causing us to erupt into whatever mode that we get into and act. If we can learn to contain that spirit and change it, our flesh will then look totally different. And that's where I think our communities is now with, as far as the peace thing and containing that rage that's in us from all of those ships that we came across.
But look, I mean, that I wholeheartedly believe, but you don't believe part of that is programming, right? So just take 246 years. I always get this wrong, but 243 to 246 years of just getting our backs whipped. They literally had their foot on our necks. Then you had Jim Crow, which lasted until 1965. And then you had, I mean, everything from crack being put into our communities to mass incarceration to lack of skill set and education to lack of group economics to police brutality. I mean, there's just so many, I call them WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, right? We all have spirits, but isn't part of that, like, where I got to look at a man who looked just like me and think he's my enemy? Isn't part of that programming a mental condition where, like, for example, you grew up in a household with love and principles and lessons and whatnot, and most of us don't have that. So inadvertently, we're programmed differently than somebody like a Azel or somebody like a me or Willie. And the environment that we're in fosters hate, fosters lack of trust. So, I mean, isn't part of that, and I'm only asking this because for every problem there is a solution. Isn't part of that mental change?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. I think that's what the whole thing is at this point, where we are now, in the, I guess, the transition or the move of this whole thing. There's no more slavery with chains and balls. There's no more locking me up and chaining me by color. Now it's a mental thing, and like you say, it's a change in mindset. And understanding that the slavery has changed to a mental enslavement process. And it's not what you do know that'll kill you, but what you don't know. It's for lack of knowledge that will be destroyed. It's where there's no vision that the people will perish. And so understanding these principles and these things like that, it'll help us to understand that, that the game has changed. And it is, like you say, it's a programming process. But like you say, it's also been done from the reconstruction of doing it, physically with the ball and chain, to now doing it mentally, to where, like I said, we're kept in a certain position so that we can be made money off of our decisions, versus being given the tools and the knowledge to be enhancing a striving people, to where we can enhance the community and the world to itself.
Oh man, West Virginia State University. What was your major?
I majored there. Well, I ended up majoring and getting my bachelor's in economics, so business economics.
So then I heard you say you went into Quicken Loans, and if I'm not mistaken, I think you said you Huntington too, right?
Yeah.
So being a Black man with those credentials, did you feel like going to certain places in certain buildings? Did you feel like you were looked at different, or people tried to maybe talk a certain way because they may have thought, oh, there's a Black guy here? You know how you step into a room, you can kind of feel the tension in the air. Like, how was it being a Black man, well put together like yourself with credentials? Like, how was that?
I mean, I think at first it's kind of like it's a tension in the room, but after a while, like when we talked about, the birthing process and understanding process and how you get from, one place to the next, moving forward, going up, understanding the mountain, it's always a climbing process, meaning it's always going to be some work to be put in to go to the next level. I understood, the process, and it helped me to embrace that energy and that tension, to know that, if it was some energy or some tension there, it had to be something that I was doing to draw some of that energy. And so me moving and coming into these areas and coming into, I guess, these environments, I wasn't particularly, the person because of, maybe how I grew up or the route that I took, but doors was open and things happened because of, maybe the route and because of maybe God in my life. Things changed drastically, but just in life, moving after graduating from college, a lot of people saw that as, oh, he has they were saying he has a degree in finance, and they were really just saying it was a degree around, money, or degree around, the economic access, or, the information of banking and that knowledge, just the period. So they saw that, and that's what kind of opened the door from starting off at Huntington Bank when I came home, actually getting in, because I had applied in West Virginia and I didn't get in. But when I came home, they ended up contacting me from one of the ones here. And I interviewed and I got in. And I worked there for about 2 years. And then Quicken Loans ended up contacting me from there and pulled me in. And that experience was amazing, to get to see, a company that operates as the #1 company in America on that level, and get to experience, the training programs, the processes that they went through, the different things that you obtain on a skill level, just from doing banking, understanding banking like in my back pocket. I could teach people this stuff all day. I could teach you mortgage and how to obtain houses, the interest rates and the APRs, all that different stuff. I have it, packaged in to where it's like, in my back pocket. And it gives me, the ability to go into a room, and even though it's tension, I can embrace it, because I know that I'm coming into the room with substance. Once I start speaking, I'm not going to, just be giving, rhymes, and I'm not talking, just talking. I'm, going to be giving information. I'm coming with substance. So I don't have really anything to be worried about. So I use it to push me forward, and, and get really everything in me out at that time and exhaust myself when I do walk into those rooms. But yeah, it was definitely, tension. It was places to where I felt like maybe they didn't want me there, you know what I'm saying? But you still have to go and keep pushing through those moments, like I said, when you start and finish in a process, because it instills things in you that most people don't have, because they just won't go through the process. Most people, go ahead.
So I want to touch on something you said earlier when you were talking, when he first asked the question, and you said you be in these rooms and you feel tension, but you felt like maybe it was because of something you was doing. And I've been in those rooms. I'm the only person, I hate this term, person of color, right? But I've been the only African American person, only Black person. What was it that you felt that you were doing other than just being Black? Because being in that same room, if you were white, you could have been doing the exact same thing and probably wouldn't have felt that. So what was it that you felt like you could have possibly been doing to draw attention other than the color of your skin?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it was nothing in particular, that I could have been doing other than, I guess, being
Being black, man.
intimidation.
Just say it, man.
Yeah.
Being
Oh no,
black.
being black. Yeah, being black for sure. Oh yeah, definitely
Yeah.
being black.
Yeah.
That's all it
Look.
was. Yeah.
Just think. Your same face, your same height, your same body, but put white skin on it, right? And unfortunately, you got a lot of the young ladies and even some young men using the skin lightening stuff to make themselves lighter and whatnot, so they can be quote unquote more acceptable. But at the end of the day, we know that's what it is. If our skin wasn't this color, we would get looked at differently. If our skin wasn't this color, more doors were open. If our skin wasn't this color, we would have access to more. And being in those rooms and it's all white, oh, they would feel right at home. So I just couldn't possibly think of anything else that you could have been doing except that you were born with melanin. And in those settings, it makes them feel uncomfortable. Nothing that you're doing except just being in existence, right? Being and I've been in a lot of those rooms, and you can feel it. Now, of course, you want to remain confident and bold and be who you are, but nah, man, trust me, there wasn't anything you was doing except being a heavily melanated brother. You know what I'm saying? And that is a threat. Like we're unfortunately, man, I hate to say it, as black men and women all over the world, we're born a threat. Born a threat.
Yeah.
So.
Well, when the threat is to take, I mean, when the goal is to, disassemble you and take you out, everyone that's born is definitely a threat.
So, man, I want to get into what you're doing now. Obviously, you running for Ward 2. And I see you in the community. I see you actually on the front line out here doing things. So tell us more and tell the people about what you're doing now with your campaign, man.
So now, yeah, I'm campaigning for Cleveland City Council Ward 2. Azel Bolden again. But campaigning and getting to the doors and knocking door to door, talking to the people, really seeing, what the people are upset about, getting their voices heard, seeing what their issues are. One of the biggest issues that we have in our community, particularly in my perspective, is they get bought and sold a lot, and it's time for that to stop. Most of our communities, when you look at them, if our politicians and if the people that we elected in lived in them, it would give you a reason to fight. Just being around the gunshots, just being around the elderly people that you see in the community scared to come outside, just being around the kids, that can't come outside and play, that can't walk down the street without maybe getting hit by a stray bullet. These types of things, people flying through stop signs and hitting people's dogs or children rather. These types of things would upset you, just naturally, or should. And so one of the biggest things I thought about was the things that you don't pay attention to like that are things that you buy and sell. And so the aspect of the idea that it gave me was a lot of times in these races, the person that has the most money is the one that wins. And so when I thought about it and when I thought about how it works is as a people, it's really who can ring the most bells and who can make their name the most visible and the most recognized. And it takes really money to do that. It's going to be whoever can get in your face the most. And so what that does is it kind of boots out the idea to let's vote for the best ideas, the best person for the job, the best one, that has the best ideas or solutions that's going to bring us as a community and a whole to a point to where we have the right solutions because they understand these problems because they're in this fire with us. So it's a different thing when, you're not in the fire with the people, so you don't understand the real heat. And so when it comes to that, when you look at how these politicians can go for, time and years after years, and not seeing anything happen, it kind of builds, that fire on the inside, the drive to get these people a voice that can't be heard. And so right now, I'm campaigning for Cleveland City Council Ward 2, and we're pushing for, we have to get our signatures. And then from there, we'll be having a couple different events. I have my first event, May 29th, which will be my Meet the Candidate event. We'll have some live entertainment things out there. I'm at the corner of 131st and Marston from 2 to 4. But you can check the website, azelbolden.com, and Azel Bolden on most social media sites from Facebook to Instagram. But having that excitement and energy, we need to get some fresh ideas in office. We have to get some younger people that understand what our people are dealing with today, not 20 years ago, and not the people that, aren't really, looking to make a change. I understand that we get old and people get old, and you're not wanting to look to run around after a community forever. So after you become 50 and 60 and 70, yeah, I understand that you don't want to, run and listen to people's calls and run around the city to get things done. But the thing is, we have people taking these jobs and taking these positions, and it seems like it ends up that we, the people, work for them instead of them working for us. And so it's time that we change that and start to, see our communities get the resources and actually get what the city is supposed to give them and a return on its investment. We've seen them go up a 0.5% on taxes so that they can accrue, I think it was between 80 million and $85 million, and our communities aren't looking like it. So we need to see a lot of these things turn around. Like I said, our mortality rate is ridiculous, and some of our areas between 25 to 30%, and it's ridiculous that's an exact reflection, as to the peace in our community and in our homes.
Man, you made some really great points, and I got one in particular. You were talking about the politicians; they don't live in these areas. What's your thoughts on the police being required to live in the areas they patrol?
I think that's one thing that we should look at, that'd be really important, because if you don't understand the area, it's hard to understand the situation that you're going into, and even be able to, gauge and make those decisions quickly, and the split second decisions to see, if I'm nervous or scared right away, or if I can come in and talk for a second to see what's going on, or, I understand that it's a life or death situation of me go home or you go home, but we have to figure out a way to bridge this gap, because we can't keep going on the same roads doing the same things. But one of the biggest things that we can do, that I believe, something that we used to, outside of making sure that we do get those officers into the right areas, like you're saying, the reflection of the officers with the people, so that there'll be that reflection in seeing that. But the thing about it is, we have to get more of our people, able to go into the police force and get and obtain the job. And so what we see is, in the Cleveland police force, there's not, a group of Black people. So, right now it'll be probably hard to get that to happen, but it's something that the city should be pushing for, should be looking to make happen, so that we can see this reflection, that we can show, that we're looking and pushing for something to change. And this is something, again, like we don't hear about these types of issues from the people that are in office now. And the thing that I brought about on one of my ideas is the mini stations. We used to have police mini stations years ago within our communities. And what I think is, regardless of, the color thing, if we spend more time with a person, it'll develop a relationship. And if we have a mini station within our area, and we're waving at each other, we're speaking to each other, we're starting to, develop this relationship to where we care for one another genuinely, I think it'll change the game a lot for the relationship between police and the people, from being a protect and serve type of thing to we're calling when it's a problem. So I think we need to start to see them not when it's just an issue, but be able to have a relationship outside of, they're shooting, what I'm saying, and they have to come running in and kind
Well,
of.
not just even that though. And I know, Willie, you got one, but I just had to piggyback off of that, because if we go back to programming, if I'm spending 99% of my time seeing negative images of you, right? Television, media, et cetera, and the hood, which I hate to even call it that, but the hood was created. The projects not originally intended for us, but that was also created. And so if I'm growing up and I become a police officer, but I'm white, and my whole life, all I saw was these negative images of Black and brown people. And then all of a sudden you want us to foster relationships. That programming doesn't just go away. And if throughout that time, 20, 30 years or whatnot, that I've been alive in this world and society has catered to me, and I've always saw you as a threat, how do you get that to change? See, that to me, what you just said, I think is a fantastic idea, but I think it's just a band-aid. I don't think it's really going to get to the root of the problem. And then on top of that, you got the justice system. So in my courtroom, I see this young black man with locks or with braids, and I automatically think thug. And I see him as a threat to society versus clean cut Billy. And they could have did the exact same thing, but I'm going to give him a different sentence because of, again, programming. Like, dude, no matter what profession you are in law enforcement, the color of your skin has dictated your programming in some way. And so you treat people differently based on the color of theirs. And at the end of the day, if that thinking doesn't change, the system won't change. And all of these quote unquote, I basically call it plugging a pothole, because you can go around the pothole, but at some point you got to redo the whole street,
right?
Make the whole street. So all we doing is really putting band-aids on stuff when the thinking has to be changed. Point that you made, we got to get more of us in law enforcement. How do we do that?
That's what I was going to say. That's where I think the root of it comes from, is the reconstruction of the thinking. And I think once we as a people, when we stop, when we help people to stop having this slave mentality, because I think some of it is a slave mentality, thinking that everything happens to me because I'm Black. I think that's a slave mentality because life don't happen that way. You know, everybody is dealing with something. I don't care what color it is. So once we can stop people from thinking that everything happens because I'm Black and get out of that mindset, we can change the narrative that's being put on our people, because we're accepting this narrative almost because the generation buys into these reality TV shows. They mimic these reality TV shows. And when you look at, you know, how the country has been set to where years after years with population control and all these different ways, when you look at, you know, why it's built, what is built after, you know, the business and the forward moving of economics and the forward moving of these things, and you look at the people, they look at us as somebody that they can't utilize, or we won't comply with the ways of society and economy to produce and grow. So what we have to start doing, I believe, is one reason why I created the program that I did, Chestnut Checkers, is because we need to start on a grassroots level with our children, and we need to start instilling in them skills and tools and technology and different things that they can use to become, you know, better people. So me running for office and stuff like that, I'm doing this, you know, because I'm doing away with my personal life, because I want to be an example for, you know, many of kids who thinks at the age of 10 or 15, I can be a positive role model in my community. I can become a police officer. I can be a teacher. I can be a lawyer. I can be a doctor. But the thing is, we don't have enough of those people in our community still for our children to see. When we become a doctor, lawyer, whatever it is, we move to the suburb. We move out to where they're catering to us. And, you know, our children are left with the best role model of being the dude on the 40s who's selling everything in the hood. So when we look at that, it's hard to think that I'm going to be anything other than what I see every day. And so that's what one of our biggest things is, we become what we behold. And so we see this every day, and our children are seeing this, you know, time after time again, and we don't change the narrative of our own communities. You know, it's almost like asinine, you know, to say that, you know, the whole issue is that part, because that is a lot of the issue. It is a lot of hate that's there. But the thing is, if we as a people stood together, imagine the difference if they came to our community and we was one. We would know when they do these riots, we would know who was throwing stuff and who wasn't, because we would be organized enough to know we wasn't over there on 31st Street. We wasn't over there on 28th Street, because we had an organized movement going on and we knew what we were doing. We weren't just, out here doing whatever, people going this way, people going that way. We were organized as one. And when they came to us, we stood up together as a people, and they had to either, obey what we want them to do, or they weren't going to be able to utilize our communities, our economics, our collective economics, and understanding where our strength is. So half of the battle is like a half and half, because only what we allow will happen, and that's what we have to get back to, or thinking of, instead of laying down and being a slave mentality where this happened because we're Black and it has to keep happening. It doesn't have to keep happening. And we as a people have to come together first, and start to teach different stuff, or else kids will keep stealing. They're not eating. What I'm gonna do? I'm gonna steal from you. I'm not eating. So if I'm not eating, I'm gonna find the best way to get some food, so we don't start teaching them how to eat, how to get some money, how to get out here and be successful, how to be business people, how to think, with chess on their mind, be chess, not checkers, how to know that my brother that I killed may be a doctor or a lawyer. Who knows how many doctors and lawyers we didn't kill that could have been the next example. So that's the thing where we have to start to teach our children the value in themselves and each other.
That's a great point you just made. Who knows how many doctors or lawyers we didn't kill? Wow.
I never heard that one, man.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. Go ahead, bro.
He said something too that, Alex, you and I talked about this. They have the JROTC, I think I said that right, that comes in and tries to recruit the kids to go to the military. We need to start having Black doctors, Black lawyers, Black police officers come in and talk to our kids also. Because once again, I say it every episode, I'm gonna keep saying that everybody that graduates high school is not gonna go to college. So if you feel like you don't have nothing after high school, you kind of feel like you have no purpose. And I'm glad that Azel said he starts at the age of 10, because you should feel like you have a purpose once you get out. Now, if you know that, hey, I got this trade going on, or I'm going to the police academy, I'm going to be a fireman after high school, that's something that you're fighting for. But when you know, like, let's be honest, man, most people know by 9th, 10th grade that college ain't in my, I ain't going there. But if you have a trade, we need to put more trades back in school to give these kids purpose. And more trades is more business within the community. Mm-hmm. You may have a kid that have a trade that may get with another kid that have a different trade, and they can come together like, hey man, let's start a business, man. Like, I ironically was reading how Dave and Buster started. One dude had I think he said he had like a game arcade room or whatever, and the other dude had a restaurant, and they talked and they combined it together. Years later, it was Dave and Buster's. Like, if we put more of that in our schools, then we'll see more business within our communities. But again, it's like the cutoff point is, if you ain't going to college, then you failed, and that ain't true, man.
Well, that's a wonderful point, bro.
When I was gonna say one thing is, a lot of people, and I think we still do this as a people, we fail to plan. And even we do this now when we start business, and when we fail to plan, we plan to fail. And so that's something that stick out big, as far as when we do not have a idea, whether you're going to college or not. If you don't have a plan, you can get in college and end up messing over a bunch of money because you didn't have a plan. And so even without going to college and all that different type of stuff, we plan to fail. But then on the flip side, when you're talking about the collective economics, one thing that we don't do is we are not educated in that area. And so, like you said, with them two coming together, creating Dave and Buster's, think about how much money just hit with the COVID, with people getting these checks. Think about that $1 million is only 500, 2,000 times. So when you think about that, think about how many people got $2,000 checks. How much money really just touched down, and what happened with it. How many new businesses went up versus how much of that money went to McDonald's and everywhere else that was already there, versus creating something that's going to stop people from going to these places that's deteriorating. So, so when we look at that collective economics is killing us.
Well, I will say, last year during the quote unquote pandemic, more businesses were started by Black entrepreneurs than like probably one of the greatest growth spurts in history. Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest problems, though, you talk about group economics. I love talking about group economics. We take our money. I heard Dame Dash say this. He said a Jewish man told him, we see you Black people as a huge business opportunity, because the moment you get some money, you immediately give it away to people who aren't Black. That's one of our biggest problems. We ain't got a problem getting the money, right? And we'll hustle from sunrise to sunset.
Get
But
it.
who are we spending our money with? That's the problem. It's like it'll be a dude that sell, say, shoes, and it's a black man that sells shoes. It'll be a dude who's in financial management. It's a black dude in financial management. We got an issue with trusting each other and giving each other an opportunity to circulate those dollars. You know what I mean?
Well, but I think that goes back to also on both ends, back to the training and the development of the people in our community. Because what I will say is I had a conversation about this not too long ago, and what we looked at is why that happens, because that is the problem, and that's one of the biggest things that we look at. That we make the most money. We keep America going around. When you look at the streets on trash day, it's a million bags on that street, on that black street. When you go in the suburb, it's one little cute bag in the trash can, if that. So when you look at who's spending what and what's coming out of where, you can see who's actually,
Absolutely.
recycling and spending his bread out. So
Yep.
when you see that, it shows us, who's doing what and what's moving and what areas. And so from that, it teaches us, how much bread is actually going into, our communities versus what's coming out and what we're seeing.
Willie, I think that needs to be taught in school. Like part of what you talking about, I'm talking about group economics. That needs to be taught. Just imagine if y'all had that at, what is it, the JFK vultures, the buzzards. Look, man, that right there is the biggest skill that the black community can have, learning how to circulate money amongst each other. It's one thing to learn a skill, have a trade, know how to start a business. But if you're not putting on for your community, if you're not putting on for your people, if you're not spending money right there, then how do you expect the community to thrive?
That goes back to managing money too. We don't even know how to manage our money. Like, you got to think, like, a lot of people don't learn credit or learn how to manage their money until they in their mid-20s. Like,
no, later than that, bro.
Later than that. So we got all these other classes in high school that, let's be honest, man, unless you about to be, listen, man, I don't think science is needed in high school. That's just me. I feel like it's more important things you could be teaching kids than science.
Well, I won't agree with you on that, but
well, no, what I was gonna say, I think in school, I think the school, like we talked about, is a part of the programming mechanism to the 8-hour workday. The continuation of people continuing to go to jail with the long hallways, the instructors. Like, if you listen to Jaden Smith, he talked about it and he made some really good points on that. But I think that it continues us to keep going to that system and to stay in that same particular, scale of moving. But what I was going to say about the training, with the reason and the why we spend this money with different people, I believe is honestly because of, our service. And reason why I say that is because I had a conversation recently about this and about why we go and why and where we spend our money. And like you say, we work hard for this money, sun up to sundown. And, we want to be served, at the best, top notch, the best of the best for that hard-earned dollar. And so what we talked about is, when you look at a place like Chick-fil-A, the service is top of the notch. You're gonna get the exuberant, the vibrant, the energy. You're gonna get the excitement. You're gonna get the almost loving and everything. When you pull up and you get this feeling, you'll wait because that building is wrapped around the corner. You'll wait for that line because you want not only the product, but the service is amazing. And so when we look at the difference, and when we come to our businesses and our places,
we actually talked about this earlier.
We're trying to we're trying to keep the business open at any cost. So we'll hire and put somebody in there.
My cousin, my dude away, down the street,
anybody. And so what it ended up doing is it tarnishes the integrity and the actual the thought of, let me go over here and spend my hard-earned money. And so like I said, it goes back to us training and teaching. I think as a people, we have to start grooming our community as a whole, so that when we do open up business and we do, have stuff, like I said, with my program, Chestnut Checkers, you groom them mentally and physically so that when I put you in that position, you know how to operate. And, you know, that's one of the biggest things for me being in corporate America moving. You know, it helped me to see the difference in the training programs and how people should be moving and operating in those positions to understand why we don't spend with, you know, different people.
That's a great point, and it all goes back to education. Willie, that should be another one. We need to learn customer service and how to deal with people. Look, I'll tell you this. Probably 15 years ago, I worked at a restaurant as a server. I worked at Bravo. I worked at PF Chang's. That's when I learned. Now, I always knew how to talk to people, but that's when I learned how to really like interact, right? Like there was a process, you know, whether you go to the table, you greet the people, take their drink orders, come back, take their app orders, apps touchdown, then you put the main order in, you know, apps take the plates, or then that comes, it was a entire process, but the whole time you're doing it, again, upbeat, smiling, that's the culture they created. You think about it, in most of our schools and most of our communities, what's the disposition? What's the tone? Is there joy? Like, are people smiling? Is it anything to be happy about? You know what I'm saying?
No
So
excitement.
no, there's none. And so you take that to work with you,
Every
no matter
day.
what job you get. Now, if you work in corporate, they ain't gonna let you in.
Yeah,
If
you can't
like
get
that.
in there. Yeah.
No, you ain't gonna get it. And look, it's a lot of restaurants that have a standard that if you don't have that, you ain't gonna get in.
Yeah.
Period. Point blank.
Yeah.
You have to look a certain way, talk a certain way. But just imagine if we
Because they
started
want
that,
their money.
they want their money. And just imagine if we started that training fifth
And
grade, sixth grade. So, right, you know
yeah.
what I'm saying?
But now
By the
that
time they
starting to seeing
graduate,
it, but our kids just seeing us treat each other with the level of respect at home so that they do it anyway, just everywhere. You
look,
know,
man. Let me ask you this: you running for city council? What do you think are the most important issues to tackle right out the gate? Give me your top three.
my top three will be policing, will be number one. We have to figure that first bridge, that first gap as far as to, you know, being quiet about this policing issue and, you know, what has to happen as far as the standard or training or something, you know, where we have to bridge that gap because it can't be silence because if we just leave it silence, then it's going to continue. So that has to be, you know, at the top of the list along with focusing on our youth, our children, and getting them, you know, resources and places to where, like I said, they can have a breath of fresh air to see something different. The child that wants to learn, you know, he has a resource or a place that they can go to because we understand that the children are our future. You know, the attack isn't on the 30 to 40 to 50-year-old person no more. The attack is on, you know, our children and getting their minds to be corrupted to where then, like you said, when we're starting these jobs and when we're starting these things, you know, the youth that should be taking on these positions aren't there. They're out in the streets doing something different. And so what we have to do is start putting in more resources and more focus on our children and on them learning and growing at a much, much younger age. And then also after that, it would be working to get, you know, a lot of these homes in our areas to where with the homes, we have a two-sided coin. They put a lot of money into demolition. I think it was over $15 million in the demolition to tear down homes, and most of those homes are on the east side. And what we look at when they're tearing down homes left and right like that, not only are they tearing out, you know, the average income base to where, you know, the less homes in the area, the less amount of money that is able to be spent. But also that's, you know, at least maybe 4 votes that we're losing from a single family home. So when we look at the votes and the economic base and the power that we're losing with all this demolition, we have to figure out, you know, that bridge and that gap to where there has to be a area to where we stop doing demolition and start putting money into the neighborhoods to where we can start to make homes more affordable when we can rehab them. We can start to see, you know, the community start to strive and lift up. We can start to teach trades through rehabbing these homes so we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone to where when the children come down the street, they'll be like, hey, I built that, and they'll have pride in it and not want you to tear it up. You know, and so through doing that, not only can we revitalize the people and teach skills and start to give people jobs and start to create, you know, things out of nothing, but it'll be something else that'll help us as a people start to make people happy again and start to look like that they're getting some return on this investment as far as they're paying taxes and things like that, because the city is putting money into, the community so that the people can benefit.
Now, what do you say to somebody who doesn't trust politicians? They greedy, they all for themselves. I done been in this area for the past 20 years, past 30 years. My grandparents from here, and he just looked like another greedy politician who all about himself and ain't changed. Change really ain't gonna happen. What do you say to that person?
Well, I mean, the first thing that, I try to express to them is that I'm not running as a politician. I'm running as a fellow resident, that has dealt with these issues, that has been, in the same communities with you, hearing the people crying out about the deaths, hearing the people crying out about the children being snatched up, about the abandoned homes, about, all of these different things that are going on. And I'm asking them to side with me as a resident, not as a politician, because I'm here upset for us both. And I'm running as a voice for, the people that don't have a voice, to where, I'm really not coming to them as, the average politician per se, because I'm really running because I'm upset and I'm a resident in this area, and we keep being let down. But I am capable of the job and the position, and I have a program and a process with a plan that we can put in place so that our communities can see more from downtown to resident, and we can actually cater to families to where most of our wards don't have, like shopping plazas and adequate necessities that we need, to where most times we have to go outside of our areas to get the things that we need. And so we're still fighting for, adequate housing, employment, good schools when our school systems are failing, food. We're still fighting for, all of these things that we've been fighting for the last 50, 60 years or more, and it still hasn't changed. But the thing is, at some point, like I said, our communities have to stop being bought and sold, and we, the people, have to speak. And so at this point, I'm not coming to them with a ton of money. I'm not coming to them with somebody that's back, with all of this money, and I'm just running to put my name out there. I'm coming to them, asking them to side with me with these issues and the thing that's going on as a resident, because I'm dealing with them and I'm tired of them just as well as they are. And we've dealt with it long enough, and this mortality rate that I keep mentioning is too high. And the thing is, as a people, we have to stop waiting until, these problems or these things hit home before we want to rally for change. And so, at this point, before there's any more of these things that happen, without people saying it, without somebody voicing it, without there being awareness brought to it, I took a stand for the community as a resident, not just a politician, and not as somebody coming in just as a political figure, but like I said, as a resident first, understanding and actually enduring and going through these problems with them. I mean, at the same time, providing resources, doing book bag giveaways, going into the community, doing toy giveaways. So as I've been enduring and understanding, the problems, I've created resources and solutions. And so at this point, I just need the other resources to keep things going and make a bigger impact.
So, man, everybody, the question is always, what's your why? So I want to ask you that. What was a moment where you was like, you know what, enough is enough. Some things need to change. Where was the moment to where you was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go ahead and be that leader and start to change in my community? What was your moment, like your why moment? Like, okay, you know what, the time is now.
I see. My why moment, I think it had to come somewhere as I was reading through the Bible, I would say. But as I had really, I think I took a point in life where I think I was in a slum and I was hurting, and I was at a kind of a dark point in life, even in the midst of, the many lights that was going on and the many things that was happening. I was still doing my giveaways and stuff, but I was at a dark point within myself, to where, not like nothing crazy, but just not happy, not satisfied, and it hurt from, relationships, things like that. But I had gotten to a point to where I started to understand the real enemy and the real fight that we are into. And once I understood the real fight being, how to um, battle and war within yourself and overcome, it really changed the game for me because I understood the war within my flesh, meaning, these spirits that I have and I battle with, to where we have to pick and choose which spirit that we're going to let win and overtake us. And that will cause, a big deal of the outcomes and the things that we see. And after coming into a light of that and understanding that, and seeing the destruction of, the world and all of these different attacks on us, and seeing, how many different things are out there for us to be, thrown off, or like our ideas and our mindsets to be taken into the world so that we can be made money off of. It starts to change, start to get you to turn, because you see how much of our society and how much of the people are really being sold down the drain, and how many lives are really being lost. It just really starts to build inside of you something that you want to do, or something that you want to make happen as a change, because there's too many people hurting. And so I think it was maybe because I've always been a person that, was forward thinking and forward moving. But after coming home from college and being around, I opened up my store, and I ended up closing my store. And so I was going through, a couple different instances at the time, but having to go back to what my dad had instilled in me, and overcoming at the moment. I had to dig deep in that moment, to find those tools and those resources that I was able to come to then think in myself, I have tools in my hands. I have gifts that I was given, in my hands, but it took for me to tap into myself. It took for everything around me not to work for me to figure out, what do I have inside of me, without anything else that I can offer, that I can use. And I started thinking about, the real bartering system, and the real system that we should be operating from, aside of the money system, because the money system makes whoever has it valuable versus everybody being valuable. And so what I thought about is like how things used to be, when if it wasn't money involved, I could offer you a plumbing job and you could offer me working on my car, and we both could be valuable. But now in the society, you're only valuable if you have access to cash. And so when I thought about that, and when it started to, I started to understand why people live, in destruction, and why we live in these places and in these cities the way we do, that we're fighting and going about these things the wrong way, that we're working for money and we should be working for time, things like that, that it changed my mind and my ideas to where I said it was something that I have to do. I have to do my part in order to fulfill, the people that I can. And so instead of working for money and going after, mortgage and working just to obtain a bunch of money, I'd rather work with children and work with the community to see a much more striving people and a much more happy people, because I understand that even if I'm good and I'm happy and I have a ton of money, I have everything that I need, there's still going to be others around me. And if those others around me aren't happy, they aren't successful, they aren't eating, then they have to eat. And they're probably going to take it off my plate if I don't open up, and start to teach and start to do different things due to the societies we live in. So understanding that, we can't keep people traumatized and can't keep them dumbed down so that we can make money off of them and expect for the society to flourish. We have to make changes, and we have to do things that will reflect that, and stop just talking about, well, this community is this, that, and the third. But the thing is, what are we going to do about it? And that's one thing about the politicians and the people that come forth, which is the reason why, I'm going, because everybody comes forth talking about the issues and the problems, which we all face every day. None of us need to be retold, the issues and what the problems are and what we're dealing with. The thing is, if you're that upset, you should have a plan by now. You should have been doing something to create a resource. You should have been putting something in to make a turnaround. And at that rate is where we should be able to pick people, to put in office. And one thing that I look at now is we have to start looking at the fruit of the people and the labor, and judge off of that. What have they produced? What have they been doing? What does their track record look like, really? in the community, and what is their best foot forward looking like versus them telling you, I want to do this, I want to do that, and just stating problems. Do they really have a plan?
Azel, I want you to close us out, man, bro. This has been fantastic. Definitely looking forward to seeing you run. Definitely, and anticipating you winning and being able to do great
Sure.
and positive things for your community, our community. But close us out. What's your message to the people? All right, with everything that we've been going through, America has a very what do you call it? They have somewhat of amnesia. We're looking at the past year, the COVID-19 and whatnot, but we've been suffering for 400 years. But where we are right now, 2021, African Americans, Black and brown, what is your message to the people and the people that you plan to serve?
The message to the people, for me, would be that our gifts are developed through our purpose, but our purpose usually comes with pain. And understanding that, going back to where we started with the birthing process, that we do have some things that we have to do to get our communities and our areas back on the right track. And it's not going to be easy, and it's going to take some work, but it is possible. And the thing about it is, the reason why I say that, we all have gifts, but the thing is, our gifts are attached to our purpose, and our purpose will tell us, what we should be doing, what daily, the things that we should be looking forward to obtain. But the thing, like I said, is most of us don't find our gift because our gift is attached to the purpose, and that purpose is usually channeled by the pain. But most of us, when the pain hits, we want to jump out, and we don't endure that pain, so that at that point in time, we don't give ourselves a chance to actually develop and find our full purpose that will give us our gifts. And so when we think about, the birthing process and how it works, that it starts with conception, which is basically the time it takes for us to conceive with thought, the time it takes for the sperm to travel to the seed. But then after that, it takes a period of dormancy. I mean, it's a period of alone time. It's a period of time by myself with pressure. And if you know about planting, when you plant a seed, it's the pressure and that darkness that produces or that pushes the seed to start to sprout out and start to open up. And once we realize as a people that we have everything in us from the beginning of time that we need in order to grow into who we're becoming, that we just need the right sunlight and water, that our communities are getting a lot of bad sunlight and water. And so from that, as we grow and we go through our period of dormancy, after that, it comes to where our functions are slowed down, but then we move into what's called gestation. And from gestation is from the period of actually, being carried in the womb, the period going from, the thing actually starting to being in a moving process. And that's the actual process of things moving and actually starting to happen. And from there, we see germination. And after germination is when we'll see the actual sprout of, the thing and the actual plant from that seed being grown. And so it takes some time. And so thinking about this, I think it's about 280 days, which is 40 weeks for women that's, pregnant. And when we think about how long of a process that is, how long of 280 days is, to only take 4 to 8 hours to birth something, we understand that it takes a lot more work in the process. It takes a lot more work over the course of that thing that we're trying to change. In order to change it, it won't take long to actually change the thing once we get to the point of being able, to access the change, being able to obtain the change. But the work is actually being put in and getting ready for the change. So once we as a community and as a people start to groom ourselves individually and take that time alone that we've had and start to groom ourselves and prune ourselves, that it hurts to be circumcised at a late age. If you think about when you should be circumcised when you're birthed versus being circumcised at 30 or 40 years old, I can only imagine the difference in, that pain and circumcision. And so what we're looking at is a generation of people that haven't been circumcised, they haven't been, cut back from the necessary things in order to move forward, in order to grow and birth this new nation. And so from that, we're seeing a reflection of it. We're seeing a reflection of immoral people that aren't thinking about, the correct things. They aren't thinking about the people that's dying, the babies that's being lost, the people that's obstructed. They're kicking it and having a good time. And so what we understand is that we have to come to a point to where we deal with these things and we go into this birthing room and come into that womb and understanding sometimes that, we have to do away with some things in order to birth something new. And even with the rocket, the boosters fall off once it gets to a certain point. So people and things will start to fall off once we start to move, but it'll be, exactly what we need to happen. But thinking about this, that's 840 times the amount of work that it takes to produce something. So when you take 280 days divided by just 4 to 8 hours, that's 840 times the work. So, I mean, it's going to take us, a lot more times the work than it is to produce the product. And so that's kind of the message that I want to leave with the people that we are in, a birthing process. We are in a birthing room, and it gets, hot, it gets tough, it gets touchy within that birthing room and within the birthing process, because people start to say some things that they may not have said because of the tension, because of the pressure. But if we understand, the goal and the product that we're reaching for, the thing that we're going after, we'll understand how to embrace this pain, in order to produce this product, in order to produce this new nation, this new community. It'll be some things that we'll have to go through that we may not want to. That pruning and that circumcision is tough, but we have to endure it and we have to go through it if we want to see, a change in our community, and we want to see our people striving and stronger.
All right, man.
All right. Yeah.
That was
yeah, man. Hey, look, the people got well fed today.
Man, what?
They got well
stomach
fed today. Mm-hmm.
But once again, man, thank you again for taking the time out with us. Good luck to you on running, man. We wish you nothing but the best of luck, man.
Definitely best of luck, bro.
Always appreciate
Best
it.
of luck.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No, thank you, man.
Yeah, man. No, bro. Just tell the people. I know you said it before, but just tell the people how they can reach you, how they can support you, how they can reach out to you.
Definitely, always on azelbolden.com is the website. From there, you have Azel Bolden on Instagram, also Azel Bolden on Facebook. So Azel Bolden, everywhere you can reach me, reach out. I love to have conversation. If you have any questions or anything about things that I've said, I love to explain it, to where we can understand each other and not use our differences, as a bridge to go away from each other, but a chance to actually grow and learn together.
Well, all right. My name is Price. That's my co-host, the Willie Ashford. It is the Black Culture Podcast. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.